I'm Peter McLaughlin. I'm joined by my colleagues Gail Dorfman and Jan Callison. Tom Barrett from the County Attorney's Office is to my left, and Katie Walker is to my right. And the stenographer will be taking down the words that are said here tonight, so that there will be an accurate record of all of the proceedings. It's my job and pleasure to welcome you here tonight. This is the second of 3 public hearings that we're having to receive comments on the Southwest Transitway Draft Environmental Impact Statement. We had one in Minneapolis last evening that some of you attended. It's great to see all of you here tonight. The Southwest LRT line will be the region's 3rd LRT line, and it'll be part of a regional system of transit. It's estimated to provide 30,000 trips per day and access to what is predicted to be 270,000 jobs along the corridor. It also provides access to some of the region's greatest amenities, whether it's the Minneapolis chain of lakes, the regional park system, the Walker Art Institute and Sculpture Garden, Hopkins Center for the Art, historic downtown Hopkins, St. Louis Park, the list goes on and on. There's a connection as well through this line for a one-stop ride to the 5 stops in downtown Minneapolis that exists currently, and it will carry on to the University of Minnesota along the central corridor to St. Paul. In addition, the line will allow residents in the Southwest Metro to connect easily and quickly to the VA, the Veterans Administration Hospital, the airport, and the Mall of America along the Hiawatha line with one transfer. In addition to that, residents in North Minneapolis and the rest of the region can get access to jobs on a reverse commute out along the Southwest Corridor. So with that, I would be happy to turn over the podium to Commissioner Dorfman for a few other comments before we get started.
Thank you, Commissioner McLaughlin. I wanted to say we had the funeral today for former Mayor Lyle Hanks. He spent 25 years in this room, and he loved a big crowd. He would love this today. So let me just a couple introductory comments, and many of you already know this. The Hennepin County Regional Rail Authority, together with our cities, began planning for transit along the Southwest Corridor a decade ago. The mutual goal was to improve transportation and transit within this growing area of our metropolitan region. And after considerable due diligence, numerous studies, and in-depth analysis, the Rail Authority and our partner cities recommended an LRT route that passes through the Kenilworth area of Minneapolis, continues through St. Louis Park and Hopkins, and then proceeds through the Opus area of Minnetonka and the Golden Triangle area of Eden Prairie. All 6 cities approved this alignment, as did the Rail Authority. It was then sent to the Met Council, whose members approved the route, called the Locally Preferred Alternative, in May of 2010. This was the first major milestone that began to move this LRT project from idea to reality. In September 2011, the Federal Transit Administration approved the project to enter into what's called the Federal New Starts Program and gave authority to the Met Council to begin preliminary engineering. Southwest LRT is only one of 12 projects nationwide to achieve this status. And recently, the Obama administration designated this LRT line as a We Can't Wait project, which will help expedite the permit and review process amongst federal agencies. Southwest was one of only 2 projects nationwide designated for We Can't Wait. At the state level, Southwest LRT received $2 million in DEED money, Department of Employment and Economic Development funds, further demonstrating the state commitment to this project, on top of an earlier $5 million in state bonding and $33 million from the Metro counties and the County's Transit Improvement Board. And in October, with the release of the DEIS, the document that you're here to talk about tonight, we achieved another milestone. The DEIS is a critical piece in the development of this major infrastructure project. Its purpose is to provide for the disclosure of potential impacts, as well as the potential mitigation of those impacts along this LRT line. Comments submitted on the DEIS will help to shape what is evaluated during preliminary engineering and what's included in the final environmental impact statement. Hennepin County has also established the Southwest LRT Community Works Project to maximize opportunities for economic development, new housing and jobs along this line, and to help coordinate land use planning with the design and engineering of the LRT line. Community Works seeks to ensure that this major regional transit investment will benefit the residents, businesses, and communities all along the Southwest Corridor from Minneapolis to Eden Prairie. Thank you all so much for being here this evening to participate in the DEIS process. Peter.
So if I might, I'll just give you a quick rundown here about the draft environmental impact statement and what it is and how it performs within this process. The draft environmental impact statement provides the public, businesses, agencies, and the general public with a full summary of the potential impacts of the project and also possible ways to mitigate those impacts. The Rail Authority chose to extend the final comment period, the formal comment period, from the mandatory 45 days to 60 days to provide the public with additional time to review what is a lengthy document and also to acknowledge the fact that this is happening in and around the Thanksgiving holiday. It's important for the public to comment on the content of this draft environmental impact statement. These comments will help shape the work of the Metropolitan Council, which will lead the preliminary engineering process, and that work will be reflected in the final environmental impact statement. Tonight we are here, the three of us, as representatives of the County Rail Authority to listen to your comments. The purpose of the hearing and the other two, one yesterday and one in Eden Prairie on the 29th of this month. The purpose is to provide the public with an opportunity to provide verbal comments on the draft environmental impact statement document. In addition to those verbal comments, comments can also be submitted via email to SW, Southwest, that is, SW Corridor at co.hennepin.mn.us. That's SW Corridor at co.hennepin.mn.us, or via the U.S. mail to Hennepin County, 701 4th Avenue South, Suite 400, Minneapolis 55415. That would be to Hennepin County, 701 4th Avenue South, Suite 400, Minneapolis 55415. Comments provided in writing will receive the same weight as comments received orally during these three public hearings. For the draft environmental impact statement, the County Rail Authority is the state responsible governmental unit, or RGU, if you hear that term. That's what the County Rail Authority is. The Federal Transit Administration, which is a part of the U.S. Department of Transportation, is the lead federal agency on this project, and the Metropolitan Council is the local project sponsor. Comments received during this comment period, which will extend through December 11th, so comments are good until December 11th, be officially collected. They're being collected by Hennepin County and will be provided to both the Metropolitan Council and the Federal Transit Administration. All comments received will inform the preliminary engineering and final environmental impact statement phases of project development. The Rail Authority and County will continue to be a strong partner as this project moves forward under the leadership of the FTA and the Metropolitan Council. Before I go on, I would acknowledge the presence, I saw her, there she is, Sue Sanger from the City Council in St. Louis Park. Okay, hold on, folks. We'll allow applause for the elected officials, but from after that's done, we're going to try to, I'm going to ask you to refrain from applause or any other noise making in terms of what people say, whether you like it or you don't like it. So we just, in terms of decorum and allowing things to proceed in an orderly fashion. Ann Mavity is here also from the St. Louis Park City Council. Mayor Jacobs, I saw him out front on my way in. I don't know if he's in the room, but he's close by, I'm sure. And so we're going to ask, in terms of speaking tonight, we're going to do what we did last night, which is to provide each speaker with 3 minutes for their comments. The speakers are going to be given a signal, 2 signals actually, or 1 signal. We're going to give you a signal with 2 minutes to go, 2 minutes to go, 1 minute to go, and your time is up. And at that point, we'd suggest that you try to wrap up, finish your thought, and then I suspect there's going to be a large number of people who wish to speak, and in order to facilitate that and to respect the people who are going to be coming later on in the agenda, we'd ask you to try to adhere to the 3-minute limit. As I indicated earlier, the comments are being transcribed as a part of a formal record that will be submitted to the FTA and Metropolitan Council. And we'd ask you to, any speaker coming up, to clearly state your name, address, and the organization that you represent, if any. You don't have to represent an organization, but if you do, we would like to have that as a part of the record. And we'd ask you to limit your comments to the Southwest Draft Environmental Impact Statement. Written comments will be accepted and will be added to the formal record. And we had do we have a box here for the written comments? There's a box out front, the blue box, white tonight, or the white box tonight, okay, sorry. And so that's where you can drop your comments, and if you actually have a written version of your statement that you're making tonight, you could feel free to drop that there as well, but your statement will be transcribed. And again, I would urge everybody to try to respect one another here as we go forward, and I think we can have a good hearing just as we did last evening. I know there are strong feelings on both sides of this issue, and we're here tonight to listen and hear what you've got to say. So with that, I'm going to proceed, and I have a list of 1, 2, 3, 4 pages so far of people who've signed up to speak. And I'm going to ask, at some point we're going to need to rotate. I don't know how many people are outside, but there's a considerable number. And we're going to have to ask people after they're done speaking, if you could, to kind of rotate out so we could rotate someone else into the room. I think that's the only way we're going to be able to give everybody a chance here, if that's possible. So our first speaker is Tom Harmoning from the City of St. Louis Park. Welcome to the Rail Authority hearing.
Good evening. My name's Tom Harmoning. I'm the city manager for the City of St. Louis Park. Address is 5005 Minnetonka Boulevard here in St. Louis Park. On behalf of the mayor and city council, I want to welcome you to St. Louis Park, and I want to welcome all of you as well. We thank you for holding this public hearing in St. Louis Park and providing an opportunity for our community to talk to you about this important project. The City of St. Louis Park is going through the whole DEIS document right now. In fact, we had our first conversation with the City Council about it last night, and we will be submitting detailed comments to you by the deadline of December 11th. The Mayor and Council did ask that I reiterate for you the position the city has taken on this whole Southwest LRT project. We've taken a couple of actions, one in 2010 and one in 2011, a couple of resolutions we've adopted that we've provided to you. First, the Mayor and City Council have gone on record more than once strongly supporting the Southwest LRT project, and that is still very much the case. And second, and as you well know, the city does have strong reservations about the freight rail reroute option. In fact, the council has gone on record opposing the reroute of freight rail traffic from the Kenilworth corridor onto the MNNS unless it's proven that no other viable alternative exists, and then only if appropriate and necessary mitigation measures are implemented. So the council asked me to just refresh your memory on that, and again, I'm sure that you were aware of that. Again, thanks for conducting this hearing, and we really look forward to working with you and the Met Council on seeing this Southwest LRT project become a reality. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. For the record, there are 5 cities along this line through which the line actually passes. So just for the record here. Next is Tom Miller, and then Jamie Lupray is on deck after that. So I'm just gonna give people some understanding here of what the order is so we can move along.
Don't get too worried. I'm Tom Miller, 2900 Yosemite Avenue South, St. Louis Park. I would like to understand how this reroute is going to be a win-win for St. Louis Park. That's the way that this has been described to us by Commissioner Dorfman, and I have to say it typifies the HCRRA's attitude toward this reroute. How is it a win-win for St. Louis Park when we know now that co-location is not only a viable alternative, as Tom Harmon just said, but an alternative that's going to cost $123 million less? Those aren't my numbers, those are the numbers straight out of the DEIS. We know that the co-location alternative is safer. We know the co-location alternative is better for the railroads. It's just all around a better corridor to run the freight train. So why is that a win-win for St. Louis Park when we have to pay a portion of that $123 million in our taxes? How is it a win-win when there's going to be a mile-long ramp that's going to be built starting at Blake Road and moving up toward the high school, a huge monstrosity of infrastructure, a new bridge built over Highway 7 for tens of millions of dollars, where the trains will then ramp up and come right in front of our high school through two blind curves, where the railroads have admitted already that there is no way they can stop if they see a child on the tracks. And these aren't the trains that we've had for tens and tens of years, as many people have said. These are new trains. These are trains that the railroads themselves have said, and experts have concurred, they will not be able to stop if they see a child on the tracks near the high school. How is that a win-win? How is it a win-win for the north side of our city on 27th, 28th, 29th, that area where the trains are up on an embankment? They will tumble down if there's a derailment. It sounds like a crazy idea. It just happened 2 months ago in Maryland. Trains tumbled down the embankment, crushed everything below them, including two young women who were sitting next to the train. When they found their bodies were still in a sitting position because they had no chance to get away from the train. They didn't have a chance to get up and try and get away. The trains were that heavy. And those are the types of trains we're talking about. How is that a win-win? How is it a win-win when the instructors at the school have to stop instructing for the period of time it takes for the trains to go by? It's already happening with the small trains we have today. Now they'll have to stop, wait for the classroom to stop shaking, have a time that they can speak over the trains as they go past, as those locomotives are throttling to get up that grade that I described earlier. That's not a win-win. How is it a win-win for the resolutions that have been passed, as Tom Harmon said, for our city leaders? They've passed resolutions, multiple resolutions, one of which Commissioner Dorfman actually signed when she was the mayor of St. Louis Park. So it puts them in a difficult position. It's not a win-win for them. It seems to us that it's not a win-win at all, because not only are we going to be less safe in St. Louis Park, but we have to pay the bill for it. We've got 1,500 signatures here on petitions, and that's only because we didn't know if the petitions would mean anything. We could get 15,000 in probably a couple of weeks if we thought this was a petitionable action. It's not a win-win, it's a lose-lose. And I have to tell you that I would not be the least bit surprised if the actions that are in the DEIS end up in the FEIS. You can expect a lawsuit from several citizens in St. Louis Park against both the HCRRA as well as the Met Council, as well as potentially our City Council if they renege on our resolutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Folks, we're not going to do applause. We're not doing applause, okay? We're not going to do it. We're not doing that. It's not the way in which the hearings are going to be conducted, and so I would ask you to respect that rule, which has been we've used for a long time, which the City of St. Louis Park also uses. So. Next witness is Jamie Lupray, and Joseph Lupray is after her. Welcome.
Hi. Jamie Lupray, 3256 Blackstone in St. Louis Park. Last September, I was pleased when the FTA asked the HCRRA to add the freight rail option to the Southwest Light Rail project. DEIS documents are supposed to be an unbiased, critical analysis of a situation. I felt hopeful. In December of last year, Commissioner Gail Dorfman said at an HCRRA meeting, which included discussion of the FTA ruling, and I quote, "How do we explain co-location being added without people thinking that co-location is on the table in a serious way? Promises were made going a long way back." I've read the entire DEIS, and I know how they've done it now. Let me give you some of the ways in which information has been left out, minimized, and twisted so that no one in their right mind will think that your promises to Kenwood are not being kept. First of all, in Chapter 1, we are told that the TCW will be happy to go north to the Humboldt Yards in New Hope. Never mind that Golden Valley, Crystal, and New Hope have no idea that they are facing increases in rail traffic. Never mind that the fact that the increase in rail traffic will cross Cedar Lake Road, and no analysis in the DEIS was given as to the traffic issues that will be caused on Cedar Lake Road as the trains pass. We are told in the DEIS document that the railroad companies will own the new track that will be built, and will be expected to maintain it in a safe standard. I understand that's correct and is safe operating procedure, but it leads the reader to believe that all the maintenance is covered. However, there is no mention in the DEIS that I can find that explains who will be responsible for maintaining the interconnect ramp with its huge retaining walls and curved bridge. According to the railroad companies, when they commented on the EAW, they will not be responsible for the maintenance of the interconnect structure. Furthermore, there's no reference in chapters 5 or 8, the ones that deal with finance. Finally, since I only have a minute, on page 58, chapter 3, discussion of impacts of co-location, and I quote, it says, with the additional tracks using a wider portion of the HCRRA corridor, the potential to alter historic properties and characteristics of the neighborhood, and they're talking about Kenilworth. How ludicrous. Kenilworth was a rail yard since the mid-1800s with as many as 14 sets of tracks. What is leaving freight trains in a rail corridor have to do with changing the historic qualities? And I could go on about how the St. Louis Park has completely left out and how it will negatively impact our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Joseph Lupray and then Brenda Littman after him. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Joseph Lupray. I live at 3256 Blackstone Avenue in St. Louis Park. I was concerned when I read through the DEIS that there's a lot of things missing in it. For example, there's no mention of a very key element to make this freight rail reroute work, is gaining trackage rights from the Burlington Northern Santa Fe east of the M&S line. And if that's been done, it should have been in the DEIS, I think. And if it's not been done, that's a critical element that's in place. And I think the public deserves to know how much that's going to cost, because the Burlington Northern Santa Fe could pull a lot of strings to make a lot of money off of this thing. One other thing was, if you look, there's so many things missing from the DEIS. For example, one of the things they say make this strange assertion that the only safety concern for the freight rail reroute would come from trespassers. As I look before me, none of you look like trespassers, but all of you might be motorists. Motorists who someday see yourselves driving southbound on Library Lane. The library is behind you. You're coming up to Lake Street. You come up to the intersection. There's traffic going east and west on Lake Street. In order to make a smooth transition of the traffic, you pull up as far as you can. It gives you a better view of the traffic, and it allows you to move more expeditiously into the flow of traffic. But now you're on the crossing. A couple of cars pull up behind you. You can't turn forward because there's traffic on Lake Street. There's cars behind you. You can't back up. And the crossing alarm goes off. There's a train coming. What are you going to do? There's nothing you can do. You're standing there. But you have done nothing wrong. You are not trespassing. You haven't done anything wrong, but your car is in danger and perhaps your life. Now the train comes, the locomotive engineer has done nothing wrong. He might be the best locomotive engineer in the world, or he could be absolutely alert on the brake, he could handle the train perfectly well, but because of the sight lines and the sharpness of the curves, there's no way he can stop that train in time to keep from hitting you. It's too late for him. It's too late for you, the motorist. But it's not too late for you, the county commissioners, to stop this as of November 14th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Brenda Littman and Louise Kerzika. Thank you.
Brenda Littman, 3301 Gettysburg Avenue South in St. Louis Park, and a 50-year resident of the suburb. People have really been detailing some of the omissions and things that the DEIS minimizes, so I'm just going to speak to some of the dangers. I strongly am in support of the Southwest Light Rail Transit. I think that's wonderful. I strongly oppose the reroute of the freight trains to St. Louis Park. It's an unnecessary, expensive governmental move that would create serious safety hazards that have already been detailed for our citizens and our schools. The move is proposed by Hennepin County and the Met Council, not by the railroad. It is not proposed by the railroad. It is truly irrational, really unconscionable in this day and age for any governmental agency to spend an extra $123 million to move a freight line from a wide, flat area that has historically been a railroad line, a railroad yard, built to handle freight trains, multiple tracks, and an area that's where certainly the freight line and the light rail could exist in concert. Moving this, relocating freight to a narrow, multi-curved bed in St. Louis Park, running through a much more congested area and next to a major high school, St. Louis Park High School, with multitudes of students, often with ear pods, crossing the tracks to McDonald's, to the football field, and just walking along the tracks on their way to school. Unconscionable spending of taxpayers' money. Well, it was just pointed out a minute ago, while a short 8-car train can stop in 100 feet, a 132-car heavy freight train running at 25 miles an hour requires a mile or more to stop. So it really can't stop in time for any hazard. It is a major hazard. In addition, a long freight train, unlike the short trains currently running on the tracks, would be on several tight curves at once, exponentially increasing the likelihood of derailment. Since a significant part of the track is elevated, as the last speaker said, Mr. Lupray, and close to houses, this is a distinct hazard. Therefore, to say that a narrow curved track suitable for short 8-car trains running at 10 miles an hour is suitable for long, heavy freight trains running at 25 miles an hour, 253 times a day, is ludicrous and strains credibility.
Thank you. Thank you. I think
Okay.
you have to
The
finish your-
DEIS
Thank you.
ignored or minimized all of this.
All right, thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you very much. Louise Kerzika and Clark Johnson next.
Good evening. My name is Louise Kerzika. I live at 3301 Library Lane. I have the unique position of being a lifelong resident of St. Louis Park in that property. My parents had the home built in 1949, so I have lived 2 blocks away from those railroad tracks my entire life. I want to talk about what I think are flawed perceptions in the DEIS regarding real-world impacts of people. I found it interesting that goal number 4 on your storyboard states, preserve and protect the quality of life in the study area. So I would ask you, how is the quality of my life preserved and protected when the property values of my home and my neighbors' homes and everyone who is within a certain number of feet of that property, of that rail line, are going to decrease? Because we know that there are studies that have been done that show this time and again in other parts of the country. How is this going to preserve and protect the quality of life for us if the safety of our children in those 5 schools, that those tracks with that rerouted traffic passing are going to be affected, especially if those trains with upgraded rail can now go at 25 miles per hour, not 10 miles per hour as they currently do. Of course, I'll remind you that my taxes are what paid for the increase of that freight traffic and for that increased quality of rail. How is my quality of life preserved and protected when I find that more frequent trains not only cause delays, but have much greater noise levels that affect, again, teaching in schools, people commuting, and those that live close and closer than I do? I'm certain that the people in Kenilworth in the Kenilworth corridor will be happy when their property values increase, because we do know that, again, from studies, light rail into an area increases the property values. So not only do we lose our property values, we don't get any of the value increase. Somebody else gets that as well. So I ask you to please think about this reroute as an issue where we look at co-location as a way to preserve the quality of life for all of us who live in this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Clark Johnson is next, and then I'm going to give this one a try. Janet Savoda? Okay. Mr. Johnson, welcome.
My name is Clark Johnson. I live at 2749 Blackstone. I've lived there since August of 1972 in the same house. I'm in total agreement with everybody that has spoken so far. And my biggest concern is it seems like there's a strong faction going that wants to keep us that live in the neighborhoods in the dark. I'm talking to you guys as a council. Hey, tonight is the first time I've seen a map that actually shows what's going on. The Star and Tribune don't work. Something's rotten in Denmark, you know. And I mean, we're the people that are going to be affected by it, you know. And nobody's ever come out and said what is going to happen with the houses if you do that reroute, okay? I counted them a year ago. I can't remember the number, but it's 80 some that are affected. And your figure was about 30. Where's all that money going to come from? And then think of the citizens and voters that you're losing, because there aren't going to be any places to move to in St. Louis Park. So that's about all I got to say.
All right, thank you. Janet Savoda and Brian Zacher next. How did I do?
Not very, no, you were close. Janet Vivoda, with a W, W-E-I-V-O-D-A. I live at 2750 Yosemite Avenue South. I don't speak officially for my neighborhood. I'm in Birchwood neighborhood, but I am on the steering committee for Birchwood Neighborhood Association. Like everyone else who's spoken so far, maybe not everyone, I strongly support light rail coming through St. Louis Park. I think that it's good. I'm looking forward to it. I think that it's a great improvement. But the reroute of the freight traffic is, I don't understand. I'm a CPA. I own 3 businesses. If I was a business person and I said, one, and we'll take a step back, the DEIS statement does not include any costs for mitigation, which really not only, I really don't even want to jump to the place where that was going to happen, but should we get to the place where you were saying there's going to be relocation, freight relocation, and there's going to be mitigation, we haven't taken that cost into account. So to say $123 million additional cost for freight relocation plus mitigation, if I was a for-profit business, I would not be thinking about that. We're talking in the range of $200 million probably. Those are taxpayer dollars for something that's totally unnecessary. I bike since June, I have been biking daily the Kenilworth corridor, the length of the Kenilworth corridor every day. Every day I say to myself, how is it possible that no one thinks that freight rail and light rail can coexist? There's so much space. And for the pieces, the very small pieces, is not $200 million or $123 million worth of expense. The trade-off between that cost and the safety savings for high schools, 500 residences are impacted by the freight relocation. I want you to think about it. I came in the room earlier. If we imagine that the screen here is someone's back door, any of these people who say that they live on Blackstone Avenue, this wall represents the freight train. That wall is roughly the distance in a backyard that train is going to run through their yard at 25 miles per hour with possible derailment. Trains derail all the time. I think that it's really critical that the city look at how that impacts those people's lives, the lives of students, the lives of all the 500 residents is impacted. I am not directly impacted. My house doesn't sit on the rail line. But as a neighbor and in those neighborhoods, I can't imagine how that's possible that this council and Met Council, City Council, anyone thinks that that is a possible thing to do to any of these people where the Kenilworth corridor is a freight line. It was designed for that. It has always had freight traffic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And next is Brian Zacher, and Sharon Lehrman is after Mr. Zacher. Mr. Zacher, welcome.
Hi, my name is Brian Zaychek.
Zaychek.
Very
Oh, I'm
close.
sorry, I misread it. I thought it was an R there.
I live at 6108 Minnetonka Boulevard, and I know all about the problems and the dangers of the elevated train because my house is the closest house to the tracks. It's about 34 feet from the tracks, and I know exactly how it goes the rest of the neighborhood, the Birchwood neighborhood, and I see all the people walking down the tracks. And I know all about the derailment dangers, but I'll keep this short and sweet. A few points of my concerns with the DEIS. The M&S spur rail line is clearly unsafe as a main rail line. Number 2, the grade crossing at 29th Street must stay open. 3, co-location with SWLRT and the TC&W's current freight rail route through the Kenilworth corridor is a viable, superior, and cheaper option to freight reroute along the M&S. Excuse me. 4, the freight reroute will result in a loss of property values along the affected areas, particularly in my neighborhood. I just got a letter from Hennepin County today saying my property values dropped $21,600. I got that in the mail this morning. I have to think this reroute must be at least partly to do for that. The reroute will block street crossings and impede the response of emergency vehicles, which is a big concern to me. My wife has a disability, and I know lots of disabled people because of her medical treatments. It's not acceptable that emergency vehicles be blocked on the way to Park Nicollet or Methodist Hospital from our side of St. Louis Park. The reroute will cause dramatic noise and safety issues by the high school. The proposed quiet zones are not adequate mitigation to address this. You said there was 5 communities along this route. Only one of them has to worry about sending their kids and grandkids to high school, and they would put them in danger of being killed or maimed by a train. That is the truth. Hennepin County did not encourage and facilitate public involvement in decisions which affect the quality of the human environment concerning the reroute, and the DEIS that describes noise and vibration study has flawed methods and conclusions. SWLRT is a great idea. The freight reroute is not, especially as is dealt with in the in the DEIS. We can do much better for St. Louis Park. And yes, I am grateful that my house is one slated to be purchased. I needed to say that. But I wish you would afford the same generosity or good thinking to the rest of the citizens along that are affected so deeply by this, by creating a greenway or a bikeway that would actually improve the area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Sharon Lehrman and Nancy Brown after Sharon. Nancy had to leave? Okay. Then okay, so that after you're Sharon Lehrman, yes?
Correct.
And so after you would be Tom Johnson.
Okay. So, hello, thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'm Sharon Lehrman. I grew up in the Birchwood neighborhood in a home on 27th and Zenwood that my parents owned for almost 50 years. My husband and I are homeowners for 18 years in the same neighborhood on 26th and Vernon. And it's our wedding anniversary tonight. Happy anniversary, honey. I would have much rather been go out to dinner, but we decided this is a very important issue. We don't have Our kids are grown up. We don't have to worry about kids at the high schools or Peter Hobart, but this is a really important issue for our community.
President Obama had that same dilemma.
Right. So my husband and I are really worried that the rerouting of freight trains is considered a done deal. In a November 4th Star Tribune article, our mayor, Jeff Jacobs, is quoted as saying opposing the freight reroute is like being opposed to winter. You can oppose it, but it's coming. And in a November 13th Star Tribune article, Commissioner Gail Dorfman is quoted as saying, I think this is a win-win for St. Louis Park in all respects, as long as we adequately mitigate for the freight rail. I just don't see how this is a win-win for St. Louis Park, and that's why I'm here tonight. This will cost taxpayers at least $123 million more than co-location in the Kenilworth corridor without any additional cost of mitigation. But the most important issue for me and my husband is the reroute is a disaster waiting to happen, and this really comes down to the safety of our residents. So I'm asking those of you who will have the power to make this decision, how will you feel when the first student is killed, the first car is hit on Library Lane, and those cars after the first derailment spill into the backyards of the homes of those people living along the tracks? Will you be there to console those parents, those families, and those residents? Will you be able to sleep at night knowing you made this decision? Because once the decision is made and the tracks are built, there's no going back. I implore you to reconsider the co-location option. It's viable with fewer safety concerns and will cost significantly less money. I'm counting on you to do the right thing and uphold our Minnesota NICE standards.
All right. Next is Tom Johnson and Betty Shaw after Mr. Johnson. Welcome to the rail.
Hi. My name is Tom Johnson. I'm president of Railroad and Metallurgical Engineering here in St. Louis Park, 4601 Excelsior Boulevard. I'm an engineering consultant with 31 years of railroad experience. I spent most of my career designing locomotives at the GE Locomotive Factory in Erie, Pennsylvania. I'm a licensed professional engineer for 28 years. My education is in metallurgical engineering with a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Minnesota. I'm certified in accident reconstruction and OSHA regulations. Most of my engineering consulting practice involves investigating, writing reports, and testifying on crossing accidents and derailments. And believe me, I don't want any extra business here in St. Louis Park. I'm here in opposition to the freight rail reroute for a number of reasons. I will address them all in my written report in response to the DEIS. Cost and construction, railroad crossing accidents, derailment analysis, noise and vibration issues, and mitigation. Tonight I want to talk about crossing accidents. And I want to address Mayor Jacobs' comments about the lack of railroad accidents near the high school. There's a reason for that. The trains go slow. A rule of thumb is that you take miles per hour that the train goes, square it, and you get in feet the stopping distance. That's just for a lot of people here, nice easy calculation. So the 8-car, 2-locomotive, 750-foot trains running now at 10 miles an hour stop in 10 times 10, 100 feet. The new MN&S upgrade will have a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. There will be much longer, heavier trains like the 132-car, 3-locomotive, 20,000-ton, 8,000-foot coal trains. Basic stopping distance for is going to be 25 times 25 or 625 feet. This is for the short trains or general freight, not the coal trains. It must be remembered this is for the small coal trains. Let's look at. I'm going to take one crossing example. For example, coming east and turning north from Highway 7, a train will pass the Walker Street crossing after 3 curves and an uphill grade. This is the Library Lane crossing. The visibility from the east, I've measured it's about 200 feet as you come around that corner. The locomotive engineer can't get a good view of what's in the crossing until he passes over Walker Street. At 10 miles an hour, 14.5 feet per second, his train is 13.8 seconds from entering Library Lane. He can stop in front of what he sees. The new 25-mile-an-hour limit, if he's going 10 miles an hour, he'll take 625 feet to stop. He will not be able to stop. I haven't even got to the coal trains yet. The engineer in the 10-mile-an-hour train is in control, and he can make the stop. This analysis is all for the small general freight trains. The large coal trains will obliterate anything in Library Lane and not come to a stop until the head of the train is well past Dakota Avenue. Also, the rear of the 8,000-foot coal train will be back 2,000 to 3,000 feet west of Louisiana. The real issue is safety versus convenience. With the braking distance that I've talked about, the locomotive engineers are going to be working okay, I'll say one more thing.
Yeah, you would, thank you.
And I have a lot to say, but
Well,
in my professional...
You're going to submit this in writing, though, aren't you?
Sorry?
You're going to have a full written report?
Full written report.
Fine, thank you.
Okay. My professional opinion about freight rail is keep it in Kenilworth, keep it slow, keep it safe.
I would just say, sir, all of my mother's family worked at the GE plant somewhere else up in Erie, Pennsylvania. I grew up in Erie. Yeah, I grew up in Corey, so. Okay, fine, thank you. Okay. Next is Betty Shaw and then Tom Pearson.
My name is Betty Shaw. I live at 2649 Huntington Avenue in St. Louis Park. My home is not anywhere reasonably close to the reroute proposed, so I'm not talking about this for my sake or for my home's sake. My passion is education, and my terrible, terrible fear about this reroute has to do with our schools. My daughter, Laura, taught at Altman Junior High in St. Paul Park for several years. Altman Junior High in St. Paul Park is a field away from the freight rail tracks that run through St. Paul Park. And every day, 2 to 3 times a day, teaching comes to a complete stop. When the trains slow down, their whistles go longer. And it's not a sweet little toot toot, it is a and I think you get the idea. Teaching is not possible. You have to interrupt it. At Altman Junior High, there has been damage to the windows. The windows shake. And after years and years and years of shaking and shaking and shaking, not only are they no longer energy efficient, which we just spent referendum dollars to make our high school, the door jambs no longer fit. The doors do not shut tightly enough that you can lock them, giving access to the school, and vandalism has occurred in the school because the doors don't lock well. There's structural cracks and damages to the school from the constant vibration of trains along this route. And it isn't even remotely as close to those freight rail lines as St. Louis Park is to the proposed routed trains. Please think very carefully about what you are doing to that marvelous asset of this community and this state when you propose to put the kind of rail traffic by that high school as close as it is, as frequently as it will go, and think very much about what that means for the quality of life in the city as a whole. My property values aren't going to go down because my train is close to me. But they sure as heck will if St. Louis Park becomes an undesirable place to send your kids to high school.
Right, next we have Tom Pearson and then Chad Hayenga.
Hello, I'm Tom Pearson. I live at 2706 Yosemite. I've lived there for about 24 years. We're at Birchwood Park neighborhood. I'm about 3 blocks from the tracks. I'm going to disagree with one of the former speakers, one of my neighbors. She said our property values will not be impacted. I would disagree with that. I think they definitely will be impacted for a number of reasons. And most of the people who spoke before me had a lot of nice facts and so forth. I'm going to give a kind of overall recap, if you will. The S in DEIS stands for study. And I think a clearly unbiased study would reveal 5 reasons why it's a bad idea to move the freight through St. Louis Park. Oh, and a lot of it's been touched on already, so I'll just recap. Quality of life, especially at the high school, is definitely going to be negatively impacted. There's the noise, the vibration, there's a disruption to the flow of traffic, not only at the high school, but at the other schools, businesses, and our community around the tracks. Safety, obviously. The proximity to the high school, it's amazing. It's not close to the high school, it's through the campus. It splits the high school building from the soccer field and football field. What's going to happen when it's time for a game, or it's time to go out to gym class out there, or to practice, and there's a freight train. You got to wait for 20 minutes. Safety is obviously an issue, as a lot of people already went through. Property values would definitely take a hit, and it's not just for the people who are right along the tracks. It's for those of us who are about 3 blocks away are also going to take a hit from the noise and the disruption, etc. It's a lot less efficient to have the trains moving through these curves and up the grade to get to them than it is to leave them on the straight path they're on now. And of course, cost. Keep hearing $123 million. That does not include the mitigation costs that would be required, and I think they are huge. Finally, the one thing that disturbs me, I didn't know this until tonight, there's several different cards out there, boards that show different ideas for rerouting. Most of them show the freight rerouted through St. Louis Park. There's 2 boards on the end here that show the light rail not going through Kenwood, but the light rail going through Uptown and then further east and then down into the city. Why aren't we talking about that? Leave the freight where it is and reroute the light rail to go through Uptown. And by the way, if I were a business in Uptown, I would want the light rail to be there. Thank you very much.
Next we have Chad Hayenga, followed by Karma Hayenga. Welcome.
My name's Chad Hange, and I am from 2700 Brunswick Avenue here in St. Louis Park. I received my property tax notice in the mail today, and unlike some of you lucky folks, my property taxes went up. So it says that the value of my home has increased in the last year by 3.2%, and because the value of my home has increased, so will my property taxes. I live across the street from the folks who back to the railroad tracks. So that was a little comical. I pay my taxes and appreciate a number of the services Hennepin County provides. Most commissioners would probably agree that spending taxpayers' money wisely is of paramount importance. Would you agree? Yeah. I'm hoping so. It is my understanding that you could save the taxpayers of Hennepin County about $120 million by co-locating LRT and the freight trains right where they are, but by relocating them it will cost about $120 million. From a dollars and cents perspective, this just doesn't add up. That being said, I have not complained to my elected officials, well, not much anyway, when dollars have been spent in ways that I deem foolish. So for me, the financial issue is secondary to some degree. However, the thought of running a 1 to 1.5 mile freight train through our community on the M, N, and S line is like jamming miles of rail cars into what is essentially a back road or side street. While carrying whatever hazardous materials the railroad company desires to place in the train cars, while blocking multiple crossings simultaneously, with engines running at full throttle to get up the hill, with tracks well above grade. Many of the neighbors that I have look up at the tracks. It's crazy. With 1,300 students and many more staff at the high school, it is at best thoughtless, and at worst, I'm not sure. I have 2 daughters at the high school and another in elementary school. If the powers that be decide rerouting the freight rail on the MN&S is the best option, which would be mind-boggling to me, I expect, as I'm sure you would if you were in my shoes, that hundreds of millions of dollars would be spent to assure the safety of St. Louis Park High School students and staff, as well as the residents that live along the MN&S. The tracks should not be above grade for such a massive train, especially a train that is within 50 feet of the high school and less than that for dozens of houses. If you're going to move the freight on the MN&S, then create a railway corridor that is at least the width of the Kenilworth corridor and is at grade or below grade to improve the safety of the citizens that live along that line. I'm hopeful that you will hear my plea and the pleas of my neighbors and take the safety issues seriously while also putting $120 million to good use where it may be needed most.
Thank you. Next, Karma Hayenga. I didn't get, oh, there you are, okay. And Fran Schmidt is after Karma.
My name is Karma Henge. My house is on 2700 Brunswick Avenue South. I have a number of concerns regarding the proposed freight rail reroute in St. Louis Park. The fact that Gail Dorfman thinks that light rail with rerouting can be a win-win for all concerned is preposterous. She, among other elected officials, are obviously not concerned about the livability, property values, and most importantly, the safety of all St. Louis Park residents. She is completely out of touch with the very serious and very real concerns of the very people who voted her into office. Another concern is that none of the mitigation requested by St. Louis Park on behalf of its residents is being considered. However, make no mistake about mitigation. Even with mitigation, if it were to come to that, rerouting would forever change the face of St. Louis Park with no possibility of its ever going back to being one of the top 100 communities in which to live.
Thank you. Next is Fran Schmidt, and Candy Aries is after that.
Hi, I'm Fran Schmidt, live 3370 Library Lane, block off of the MN&S. I just want to iterate and even reiterate what's been said tonight, that co-location is the only thing that makes sense. Relocation does not make sense. So co-locate, not relocate. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, Candy Aries, and Will Schroer is after that. Welcome to the hearing.
My name is Candy. I live on 3051 Brunswick Avenue.
Could you say your last name for the tape?
Aries.
Okay, thank you.
I've spent a lot of time reading the Southwest DEIS, and though it was set to study the impacts of this, especially through St. Louis Park, it seems to be missing out on some real world issues and the things that happen in this neighborhood. I have many concerns, and I think that there's many flaws in the DEIS, but I'm going to focus on two. The first being the noise and the noise study that was used in the analysis. The noise impacts are flawed and improper. The methodology that was used in the studies comes from the M&S PMT process, and in those studies, the field studies were completed with only looking at the noise for the current freight that goes through the M&S. It is not acceptable because the design for the interconnect and the traffic that will be traveling through our neighborhoods will fundamentally change. The numbers of locomotives will double, the number of rail cars will increase, and the speed will increase. This makes this study not applicable to this situation. In addition, we're talking about building a ramp that's going to be a mile long. It's going to end with a sharp curve. None of these have been part of the noise study. There's no consideration for how much or how hard the locomotives will have to work to climb the ramp as they try to get onto the tracks at the M&S. The reality of this is that the locomotive will be at increased throttle and that they will continue to climb and continue, and the longer trains will require this increased throttle as it comes past our high school, causing more noise for students. The curve itself will also have its own known noise impacts, and it will have increased friction that will cause more wheel squeals. The second thing I wanted to mention is the DEIS talks about community cohesion, and in that it says that the community cohesion in St. Louis Park will have no impacts. I find this ludicrous. The tracks are within a half mile of 5 schools, adjacent to more than 300 homes. We have 3 neighborhood parks. We have many athletic fields. And somehow, all this has been lost in the study and not included as an impact. So I'd just like to say that I disagree that the 3A route with a freight reroute coming through the St. Louis Park is the best for this. And I want to say that I support the co-location option. Co-location, not reroute.
Thank you. Next, Will Schroer, and after Will, Paul Danasek. Welcome.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Will Schroer. I represent the Minneapolis Regional Chamber of Commerce and the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce. My work address is 81 South 9th Street, Minneapolis. My home address, for what it's worth, is 3805 Upton Avenue South, and eager to walk to the West Lake Southwest Light Rail stop. The 2 chambers and our sister chambers, Twin West, Edina, and Eden Prairie Chambers of Commerce, have been strong supporters of the Southwest Light Rail project because we believe that the region and these cities in particular absolutely need the additional transportation capacity and connectivity represented by this project. The purpose of this testimony is to speak to the Rail Authority and to the FTA, of course. Love an opportunity to engage with all the other opinions here, and it seems rude to not acknowledge those. We do acknowledge those, but we want to emphasize the following to the FTA and to the Rail Authority. The region absolutely needs this line. We have been engaged with the planners on this line for several years to help move it forward, and emphasize 2 points to the FTA and the Rail Authority. The first is that we endorse the DEIS's findings that the benefits of the Southwest LRT substantially outweigh the impacts, that of the transportation options studied, the light rail has the greatest ability to address the needs of the region. Third, that the LPA is the most cost-effective option per rider, including those shown on the maps and elsewhere discussed here this evening. And fourth, that the LPA fits with, in general, understanding the concerns expressed here tonight, the land use and economic development plans of all of the communities along the line. Second, though, responding to the concerns that we've heard here tonight, we understand and have heard the concerns of the residents here tonight. Our understanding of the DEIS is that the reroute is the only workable way to advance this line. My personal experience includes working on DEISs and FEISs in the past. I endorse for the FTA and the Rail Authority's benefit the efforts to treat this as a study and explore all possible options and urge them to continue to do that. Bottom line is the region absolutely needs this line, and we hope a way is found to mitigate and move forward with this line. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, folks, enough. Enough. Let's move on now to Paul Danasek and Greg Harmon next. And as Paul is coming up, I would acknowledge the presence of Jennifer Munt, who is a member of the Metropolitan Council. Sorry, you were bending down tying your shoe. Thank you. Go ahead.
My name's Paul Danasek, 2721 Idaho Avenue South, Bronx Park neighborhood. And I strongly disagree with the previous commenter. To the fact, DEIS, the way this is supposed to work is that this is a draft, right? So you're supposed to be collecting comments and you're supposed to be collecting all the facts. And when I found out that the facts were not collected regarding derailments in this reroute, especially when the derailments come within several feet of the high school that I plan to send my 2 kids to, I became activated and I'm here tonight. So any final EIS will need to have a study of derailments through all the at-grade crossings, which are more in this reroute than are in the co-location option. So this LRT line is a good idea with a bad plan if it doesn't include co-locating. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Harmon and then Barb Thoman. Welcome to the hearing, sir.
My name is actually Greg Hannon, and I live at 3600 Wooddale Avenue South. And I'm going to give you another point of view that we haven't heard yet. And with all due respect for the people that have their orange shirts on tonight, there's another part of the neighborhood that's affected by the decision-making process here. I guess my question would be, how many people purchased their respective homes before the tracks were put in place? Well, the answer to that is obviously none of you were. You bought your house at a discount because you live next to a track. And when you bought that house, was it written into your mortgage that you were never going to have a train come through there? Of course not. Of course not. I'm a little disappointed that the safety issue is being, in my view, politicized to make this thing happen. I had 2 kids that went through St. Louis Park, went to the high school, and obviously, all due respect, I know that there's a safety issue, but that's not the only thing. To me, this is a simple economic issue. The people that live near these, where this route is going to take place, the 500 homes, they're simply trying to protect their investment because they know that their homes are going to devalue. So what you're saying is, let's put the LRT and the freight trains right next to our building where there's 60 residents right now. And that, to me, makes no sense for our neighborhood. Because if you put the LRT and the freight trains right there, imagine trying to cross at Wooddale on a daily basis. And so everybody says, don't put it in my neighborhood. I don't want it to be my problem. And that's really simply what it is. But in all fairness, I'll try to make you a deal. We'll keep the freight trains. Why don't you take the LRT through the neighborhood? Thank you.
Barb Thoman and then David, looks like H.O. Hound. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Commissioners, my name is Barb Thoman. I'm the Executive Director of Transit for Livable Communities. Our office is located in St. Paul, and we have about 10,000 members located across the metro region and in greater Minnesota. Our organization has been around since 1996. Our members want expanded public transit, bus, rail, streetcars, and safer connections for biking and walking. They see the Southwest Light Rail project as a critical line in the system, and the locally preferred alternative as being the most cost-effective proposal. People want more options. The residents and employers of our region, students want a way to get to college without having to spend money on gasoline and an unreliable car. Employers want to put money into research and development, not money into expensive parking ramps for their employees and their customers. And commuters want an alternative to sitting in the kind of congestion that we saw on Monday when we had about a ½ an inch of snow that seemed to snarl up our entire region's transportation system. We are falling behind those places like Denver, Dallas, Seattle, Charlotte, and St. Louis, who are building out their public transit systems. They have a growing array of options that are attracting young people, that are enabling those regions to retain their senior citizens, and they are maximizing new development at these light rail station areas. New development that results in jobs, walkable community centers, huge savings on public infrastructure costs, and often billions of dollars in new development. So we are confident that the county, the Met Council, and cities along the line can work out an acceptable plan. I live within walking distance of the Central Corridor light rail line, which is under construction right now. For the record, I also live within walking distance of a freight rail line that serves a major paper recycling plant and a number of grain elevators. So the Central Corridor project runs right down the middle of a 4-lane arterial street. And the Met Council and the project office have worked diligently with my neighbors, with the businesses in our community to work out thousands of little details, things like locations of stations, zoning changes, vibration, train horns, parking, congestion mitigation, pedestrian safety. And pedestrian safety is important to people in my neighborhood because along the Central Corridor Light Rail Line, where a train will pass every 5 minutes, there are a number of elementary schools, high schools, libraries, sheltered workshops, services for the blind. So the county has been working with us to make sure that that line and those trains, 3-car trains passing every 5 minutes, are going to be a safe and wonderful addition to our neighborhood, and I can say that the excitement is building. So I trust you to come to a resolution that works well for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. David Howard, and then Matt Myers. Welcome to the hearing, sir.
Thank you. Oops. My name is David Howard, and I live in 1246 Schreier Avenue West in Roseville, Minnesota, and I represent the Sierra Club and myself. And obviously, due to my address, can you hear me way up here? Obviously, due to my address, I can't speak to the initial main topic here regarding the rerouting. So I'm going to speak on behalf of all the people who live in the Twin Cities who will be able to use this route to get from one side of the cities to the other. My wife works at Methodist Hospital in St. Louis Park, and she goes back and forth every day from Roseville. And I have a need to go every couple of weeks to Park Nicollet Medical Center. So having a having a rail line that would transverse the entire Twin Cities would be of great value for ourselves specifically and for everybody. I think this will tie the city together very well. In regards to the representation of the Sierra Club, I just want to represent that the need for decreasing air pollution, the need to reduce the amount of fossil fuel burned in automobiles, and just general congestion is extremely important for the Twin Cities as it grows and continues to grow. So for these reasons, I'm very, very supportive of the Southwest Corridor, which is the Green Line, and a continuation of the Central Corridor, which starts at the downtown St. Paul train depot. And one thing in regards to the primary topic tonight, I used to live in Rochester, Minnesota, and they went through a very similar deal here, even including a reroute with potential of high-speed coal trains going right through the middle of downtown. And there the Mayo Clinic and most of the governmental officials were locked hand in hand against the idea of running it through the town. There was a reroute too, but it ran out into the countryside, and the farmers were against that one. So it is a very difficult issue, and I hope you will be able to solve it fairly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Matt Myers is next, and then Rolf Peterson. Is Matt Myers here? No. All right. Then we'll go to Rolf Peterson, and then followed by Denise Sargent.
Hold on a second, I brought a prop. Take a look at it. It's a rock.
It certainly is. I'm Rolf Peterson. I live at 3536 Zinran Avenue South in St. Louis Park, and I represent the St. Louis Park School Board on the Southwest LRT CAC. I'm a former school board member, and having worked on the freight rail issue for several years on the board, I've continued that work since I've left the school board in January. The school district has asked me to comment in person this evening, but to also let you know that we are working on a much more detailed, formal written response. The rock I just handed you is a small piece of limestone. It's a sedimentary rock. It's hard, it's heavy, it's tough. It'll basically last forever. It's what the pyramids were built out of limestone. They will be here, that rock will be here long after we're gone, a lot like a railroad. And that's my message for this evening. Many times we are concerned about what's going to happen tomorrow or next year. Please remember that the decisions we are making with regard to the railroad will be with us for a very long time. Long after we are gone, this building, even the LRT, freight rail traffic will still be operating on the very tracks we are pondering now in the Southwest LRT DEIS. The school district has been on record going back to 2008 during the scoping process with concerns about safety, noise, vibration, and operations impacts. And that has not changed. We've participated faithfully in the HCRRA PMT process, both with a list of requested mitigations and EAW comments. The Southwest LRT doesn't seem to offer anything different from the EAW, but again defers to future discussions of mitigations, which is puzzling because there seems to be different budget amounts for the reroute and the co-located options. How would you determine the budget without knowing the scope of these alternatives? Again, we will be responding in writing with more specific comments and do look forward to future discussions regarding the impacts of a freight rail reroute would have on our schools and our students. Now let me tell you a story of my friend Rocky there. I collected him on the afternoon of April 28, 2011, along the very popular Cedar Lake LRT Regional Trail, about halfway between the Lake Street Bridge and the Beltline Boulevard crossing. Rocky was spilled there during a derailment of a train carrying 260,000 pounds of white limestone on October 2nd, 2010. As you hold that rock in your hand, just imagine if you were holding anhydrous ammonia or ethanol. These are the kind of things commonly transported in this corner of the world, and as a common carrier, railroads cannot deny shipments. As we move forward in this process, please keep in mind the longevity of the decisions being made and how we can best serve future generations of Minnesota. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'll need that rock back. I should probably actually give it to Bob. I think it belongs to
Denise Sargent and then Peter Rickmeyer.
My name is Denise Sargent. I live at 4841 West 40th Lane, St. Louis Park. I also do not live anywhere near the proposed route rerouting. My top concerns are that the DEIS did not address the safety concerns of 4 blind curves that they are including in the reroute. There will be a steep grade rising 30 feet right before the high school. Then there's a blind curve going left, there's a blind curve going right in front of the high school, and then there's another blind curve near Peter Hobart School up at Dakota Park. I find that the fact of this reroute versus nothing like that having to happen in the Kenilworth corridor, I just don't understand how that came out as a better idea. It's costing much more money. There's going to be a lot more danger to the kids and to the people. And the one thing I wanted to mention is St. Louis Park has been nominated or awarded as one of the top 100 communities in this country. The St. Louis Park High School is rated very highly. They recently won an award, and I can't remember what it is. But this will seriously impact the quality of life in St. Louis Park, both with traffic backups, noise levels, problems with people wanting to send their children to the St. Louis Park schools. And for that reason, I support, at the very least, a new study that takes into the considerations the safety recommendations that we have talked about tonight. Thank you.
All right, Peter Rickmeyer and then Matthias Mortensen.
Good evening. Peter Rickmeyer, 2118 25th Avenue North, Minneapolis, 55411. First, St. Louis Park has been known to be the most respectful people in the Twin Cities area. And keeping that in mind, a couple of things. One is that I don't understand why a tunnel can't be built for the trains to go into a tunnel versus building a mile long ramp. Just build a tunnel, and then you can have a road over the railroad bridge, over the railroad tracks, so you can actually utilize the airspace above the train. The second thing is that there's a precedent already set that allows the county and the state and the city to triple the amount of money that's designated for project. The Lowry Bridge came in about 3 times the amount that it was supposed to come in at. So the last part is that I went to last night's hearing, and I want to talk a little bit about the noise mitigating. Coming over here from the other side, the freeway noise was a lot, and then when I hit the bushes, it really cut down a lot. I would encourage the mitigating noise to put several layers of bushes, medium trees, and large trees. And when I say layers, I don't mean one row. I meant, you know, a couple feet of bushes, several rows of medium trees, several high trees. That would definitely lower the noise during the spring, summer, and fall, and it will still eliminate some noise during the winter time. Thank you for your time.
Matthias Mortensen and then Edna Bernstein. Mr. Mortensen, Matthias Mortensen. One more time. Matthias Mortensen, not here. Then Edna Bernstein and then Cheryl Martin. Edna Bernstein. All right. Then Cheryl Martin. And after Cheryl, we'll go to Catherine, looks like Kotke, perhaps? Okay, thank you.
Hi there. Thanks for giving us this opportunity tonight. My name is Cheryl Martin. I live at 5728 West 26th Street in St. Louis Park. That's in the Birchwood neighborhood. And I feel like all the comments I had prepared here have been said over and over. So I feel like I'm rather redundant, but I guess some of the points that I too had was the cost. You know, the money itself is a lot that could be saved, the $123 million that's already on the table for the Southwest Rail. But the mitigation has not even been considered yet for St. Louis Park. And in that DEIS study, I believe there were 2 mitigations that were addressed. One was to close 29th Avenue, and I don't think the neighborhood is in favor of that one. The second one had to do with a quiet zone around the high school. And one of our speakers tonight, earlier, Tom Johnson, who's already told his credentials, had indicated in a Safety in the Park meeting that as much as that would be a quiet zone, because of the visibility issues there, the engineers don't want a death on their conscience, and so therefore they're going to blow their whistles anyway. And so what would have been a quiet zone is not going to be a quiet zone. So we'll not only have the noise the trains are making, but we'll have all the whistles besides. I believe in the fact that the railroad people have talked to various city council members, whatever, to say that where the trains are now in a flat area without the grades, etc., and not the curves, is where they would prefer to be, and yet we have skirted that and not even talked about co-location. So I too really want to see the Southwest Rail Line come in, but not at the expense of us having a reroute. I would like to see it in the co-location part. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Catherine Kotke, then I think it's Mike Daly. Welcome to the hearing.
Thank you. My name is Catherine Kotke. I live on 2712 Brunswick Avenue in St. Louis Park. I'm a Bronx Park neighborhood block captain. That's my group. Dear County Commissioners, I want to express my deep disappointment in a document that was supposed to be an objective and fair study of the freight rail problem in the DEIS. I'm a little sad to say this, but I also want to take this opportunity to say shame on Hennepin County for once again wasting taxpayer money on a bogus report that divulges nothing but selfish political motives. Shame on Hennepin County. I'm sorry. My comments are limited to Chapter 3 of the DEIS. On page 19, the DEIS claims that 6 separate studies concluded the best option for freight rail operations was to relocate the TC&W freight rail operations on the MN&S line, and I took that direct quote. Not one of these studies is named or presented in the DEIS. The chart provided on planned land use, and I found this on pages 36 through 39 in the DEIS, names 3 documents that demonstrate co-location is incompatible with existing land use. One of the links leads to a web page not found, and 2 others to brochure-type documents expressing vision statements about transit possibilities rather than comments about freight operations. Interestingly, the chart lists relocation of freight as compatible with St. Louis Park land use plans. Why doesn't the document cite the 4 separate resolutions signed by 2 different mayors, one of which was Gail Dorfman, over the past 2 decades as evidence of incompatibility? Why aren't the city's resolutions included in the DEIS at all? Why doesn't the DEIS mention the SCH study funded by the city of St. Louis Park that found the freight and LRT can co-locate and is far less expensive and much safer? The only thing that I can conclude is that Hennepin County had no intention of ever considering co-location. And I think that Hennepin County, again, as they did on the EAW, they wish to misrepresent the facts or lie to the FTA about the freight problem in the Kenilworth corridor. On page 60, the DEIS claims that relocating freight would add only a small increase in freight rail traffic. Significant impacts to community cohesion along the MN&S would not be anticipated, and this was a shock. As others have attested, this is a bald-faced lie. The types of trains, length, weight, and material carried will change St. Louis Park profoundly. St. Louis Park community cohesion will dramatically change, and it will only bring negative consequences in the form of increased vibrations, noise, safety concerns, blocked intersections, and so on.
Okay. If you can finish up your thought.
The Italian architecture along the Kenilworth corridor that the DEIS is so interested in may not be found along the humble route of the MN&S, but our community will be seriously damaged nonetheless. I'm sorry, but I am ashamed. This is an embarrassing document. It's not a study. Thank you.
Mike Daly and Jay Lyons, then. Mr. Daly, welcome.
Welcome. Me. Oh, yeah. My name is Mike Daly. I live at 2749 Brunswick. I've got a couple of questions that I have never seen the results for, and we had a meeting down at Nelson Park here a couple of weeks ago with one of your other constituents, or however you want to say it, off the light rail deal. I asked her, I said, how much is it going to cost to run this thing for a day or per hour? How much is it going to make in an hour? No answer. Nobody seems to know how much. How much does the Hiawatha line cost to run per hour versus how much you're taking in? There's nothing ever let out about that. And one other comment, Gail, I'm going to make to you that you set up at the high school last year. This is a done deal. It's not a done deal.
Okay, folks, we're getting a little out of control here. Jay Lyons and then Mary Goslin. We're going to keep order here. Okay.
My name's Jay Lyons. I live at 646th Avenue South in Hopkins. This is a really good time for me to come up here because of just what just happened. I came here because I wanted to express my support for light rail in general. I think this is going to be a great boon to St. Louis Park, Hopkins, Eden Prairie, Minneapolis, and the Twin Cities as a whole. I have learned a lot tonight about that I didn't know about what this freight, the freight piece of it could mean for St. Louis Park. And I have a lot of sympathy for people whose homes, whose property values, whose perceived safety might be affected by it. But just 2 points that I found that I would like to make during this are, one, that when we have a large project like this, there are always going to be some impacts. There are going to be some negative impacts, and it's not going to be fair. Some areas are going to be impacted more than others, and I think that, you know, the job of our commissioners, the job of all the people involved in this project, is to try to find the least impactful way of doing it in terms of negative that will be feasible. I don't know, other than reading, I haven't read through the whole DEIS, I've read the executive summary. It's not evident to me exactly what the strong considerations were in going about it the way that the preferred route, why that was chosen that way. But and so I don't really have an opinion on that at this point. But what I do have an opinion on is that I moved to Hopkins about 5 years ago. I lived over on the other side of the river, and so I didn't know very much about St. Louis Park, and I've gotten involved in some things that have brought me into contact with lots of St. Louis Park folks, and I really like this community and I really like the people in it. But I hope that people can be civil in this kind of a discussion. I've heard cursing. I've heard just kind of some abusive statements made. And I just hope that, I know there's a lot of passion, there's a lot of emotion for the people that are affected by this, but I hope we can relate to each other in a respectful way. Thanks.
Thank you. Mary Goslin and Shelby Henga.
You get an A on pronunciation, by the way, on
Thank
that
you.
one.
Thank you.
Thank you for this chance to comment on the freight rail reroute. Anyone who's driven a car knows that a 30-foot ascent into a blind curve followed by a 30-foot descent into a blind curve is dangerous. Add 2 more blind curves and consider a mile-long train traveling this route 42 times a week at 25 miles an hour, requiring 1 mile to stop into an area that's congested with school buses, pedestrians, and cars filled with teachers, parents, students, commuters, football fans, and athletes. Our current average 8-car trains travel 10 miles an hour 10 times per week on level ground, and somehow the DEIS missed the difference, stating trespassers as the sole safety hazard. In healthcare, we exercise a stop the line and a pause for cause to prevent errors before they happen. Please pause and look at this again. Lives are depending on you.
Thank you. Shelby Henga, and then Sharon Duncan. Welcome to the hearing.
Thank you. My name is Shelby Henge. My address is 2700 Brunswick Avenue South, and I am a senior at St. Louis Park High School. I have lived here nearly all of my life, and I'm proud to call St. Louis Park my home, and I'm also very proud to be a student at St. Louis Park High School. I've been hearing the conversations for the last couple of years about the possibility of more freight trains passing by the high school, and so I thank you for giving me an opportunity to share some of my thoughts with you tonight. Although I can't speak for everyone at the high school, I know my experience is not isolated. Currently, when a train passes by the high school and I am in a class on the railroad track side of the building, the teacher will oftentimes stop talking, stop teaching because students are distracted and they don't want to have to try to teach above the noise. The trains that come by the high school usually have 10 or 15 cars or so and are going relatively slowly. Even so, there are students that run out in front of them and take unnecessary risks to get across before they get blocked so they don't have to wait the time it takes for the train to cross. Also, traffic around the high school is very busy before school and after school. This is our current situation. Not ideal, but manageable. However, I'm very concerned with the possibility of having trains that are 10 or 15 times longer and much, much louder. Also, it seems the frequency of trains will likely increase significantly. If this is the case, our classes will be disrupted more often and for longer periods of time. Longer trains will not be able to stop in time if there is someone or something on the tracks. Also, our wait time to get from one side of the tracks will increase. Maybe that's not such a big deal if we have to cross from McDonald's to get back to class in time, but it will be a big deal for emergency vehicles trying to get through. Please consider the impact your decisions will have on students like me. We are counting on you to think of us and represent us well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sharon Duncan, and then Jean or Harry Baxter. Ms. Duncan, welcome.
Hi, my name is Sharon Duncan, and thank you for this opportunity to talk tonight. And my address is 3249 Florida. And I want to speak in behalf of our children. And one of the things that makes St. Louis Park such a great community to live in is that it's children's first. And I feel that having this reroute will significantly change that. And I'm concerned about a lot of different things, but the main thing I'm concerned about is our children's safety. And also, as she just spoke about crossing the street to get to McDonald's. We live near the high school, and I can't tell you how many times I'm seeing kids cross that road in front of cars, in front of anything, trains, just to get to McDonald's. And also one thing I wanted to quote in this book, this is by David Walsh, a psychologist and best-selling author, and he's talking about the prefrontal cortex of the brain, being the kind of the CEO of the brain, and the part where we think ahead, consider consequences, and manage emotional impulses and urges. It's one of the last circuits of the brain to mature. It enters a major developmental period as boys and girls enter adolescence and does not end until late teens or early 20s. Talks about adolescence is a heck of a time for the impulse control center to be under construction. Just when adolescents need it most, the PFC's ability to act rationally and think through problems and challenges is offline. Even though the teen PFC is much closer to being mature, it's no match for their roller coaster emotions. And I'm just concerned about, I want to beat that train. I'm trying to get to McDonald's, and now I know these trains are going to be a lot longer, and I'm going to have to wait this much more time, so I'm going to bolt across the street. Meanwhile, these trains are coming that much faster, and there's blind corners. I'm concerned about all the cars that are crossing the road, and a lot of new drivers as well, and all the traffic that with the buses and all the cars, and cars getting trapped right there. So that's my main point, I guess, is just our children's safety. And I also was going to say the same thing as the other Sharon that spoke earlier, is about how are you going to feel as decision makers when there's the first fatality or significant injury. It's just an accident waiting to happen. So thank you.
Next is Jean or Harry Baxter. That's how it's listed here, one or the other. I'll have to flip a coin maybe, or maybe they're not here. Then Jean or Harry Baxter, no? All right, then Christine Roth, followed by Shelley Silverman. Silvermail, I'm sorry. Hi, how are you?
Good evening. My name is Christine Roth. I live at 3057 Edgewood Avenue South. I've been a resident of St. Louis Park over half my life in a combination of the Triangle neighborhood and now in the Lenox neighborhood. I have great disappointment in this process. I have great disappointment in the document, the DEIS document. It doesn't seem that any of the comparisons that were made in this have ever been an apple-to-apple basis between the Kenilworth corridor and the MN&S route. The Kenilworth corridor, anyone with an ounce of common sense in their head, comparing those two routes would determine that co-location is the obvious choice. The Kenilworth corridor offers a consistent grade. At the same grade, the housing on that line is. The amount of housing on the Kenilworth line is half that it is on the MN&S. Our houses may not be worth as much money, perhaps, as some of the homes along the Kenilworth corridor, but there's twice the amount of them. As for the argument that I've heard Ms. Dorfman comment on in the past, that light rail and freight rail are not designed to be co-located, they are already co-located west of Louisiana Avenue. As it's already been stated tonight by a number of people, the Kenilworth line is the much cheaper route by over $123 million. We've talked a lot about the blind curves and the setbacks and all the things that go into this. It's very obvious. Have any of you walked the line, the MN&S line, and physically looked at this area?
I've ridden it. And
Pardon?
I've ridden it. I've ridden a bike on parts of it.
Many times.
Parts of it, not all of it? Well, I would encourage you, if you haven't, to give it another look, particularly between 27th Street and Minnetonka Boulevard and in front of the high school. It's common to see kids walking on the high school. It's common when you drive past there. This time of year in the dark to have kids darting out on the street in front of you, and there's not going to be any change in that behavior, as we've just had pointed out to us. My great disappointment is that this has never been an apple-to-apple comparison, and it really feels like the route is determined at any cost. So I hope that's not the case, and I hope you won't let us down in that regard.
Shelley Silvermail. And then are there other sign-in sheets? Or not? Okay. Then if there are others who wish to speak, we'll just take them. Oh, I've got a couple more. There's a couple more here. I'm sorry. One last sheet. Hi, sorry to interrupt there. Go ahead.
I live at 2944 Blackstone. And
to read your name into the record, just so we have it.
Shelley Silvernail.
Nail with an N.
With
okay,
an N.
Sorry. Got it.
Well, everybody that has come up has pretty much said what I would like to have said. And I guess I don't really see the reason that we're even having the discussion, because Kenilworth seems to be the least expensive and makes more just common sense. And I don't know if, well, you aren't, no one is from St. Louis Park. I know, but you are a commissioner now. So.
I'm still a resident.
Is there, I thought that there was a part of St. Louis Park that the rail would have to buy from us. And I don't know if that's true or if that section has been sold.
We're not answering questions tonight. You need
Okay,
to put the
well,
questions on the record, and they'll be.
If we do still own any property, maybe we all need to get together and discuss that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Robert Aidenhold. Robert Aidenhold. Lynn Wick. Followed by Lynn Carper.
Hello, my name is Lynn Wick. I live at 3965 Quentin Avenue South, and I've owned my home since '77. I can only hope that that all of these people here that are talking to you guys, that you're actually listening to what is being said. I don't know if you are, or if this is just lip service that is paid to the process, but I really hope you're listening to these folks. I do not understand for 1 second how this can be, how the freight rail reroute through St. Louis Park could be considered without putting a dollar sign on the mitigation. And whose responsibility will it be to pay for that mitigation? Are we not only going to lose our quality of life, but we're going to have to pay for it too? I don't know how you can even consider it without asking those questions. And I didn't plan on speaking at all. I just wanted to come here to show my support. But it came to me as I was driving here that the the lack of logic that's being shown by even considering running this freight rail reroute through St. Louis Park, when the co-location is clearly the less costly and the most reasonable way to go. I'm baffled by it. It makes as much sense to me as saying that you're going to reroute barge traffic onto Minnehaha Creek. You could do it. You could do it. Who knows how much it's going to cost? Does it make any sense at all when there's that big river over there that's been handling it fine for a long time? That's all I can say about it, and thank you for letting me talk.
Lynn Carper and Veronica Minwatipka.
I want to just listen.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Lynn Carper. Okay. Thank you for being here.
Well, perhaps last and least, Lynn Carper. I live at 4010 Highwood Road in St. Louis Park. I've been a resident since 1991. I consider myself very involved in St. Louis Park. I'm on the Planning Commission. I'm the chair of the Charter Commission. I was on the Block Captains Advisory Council. I was on the very first Railroad Task Force when it initiated in 1995. So I've got a strong background, and I also was on the most recent PMT.
Thank you for your service.
You are welcome. One of the things that I want to stress is that I am definitely in favor of the LRT. I think that we need various forms of transportation in the metropolitan area, and definitely mass transportation is something that is necessary. As far as relocation goes, I say not now, not ever. And I'm going to give you 3 examples on why this should not be done. First example that we had, and it was mentioned earlier, is the fact that recently in Ellicott City, Maryland, on August 21st, there was a derailment of 21 cars on a coal train. Some young teenagers were adjacent to where that train is, and they were buried alive, and they were not able to get them out before they asphyxiated. It also buried an entire parking lot full of cars that the city was uncertain whether or not there are occupants in that vehicle. We face the same risk with this elevated MN&S line as it comes through St. Louis Park because the tracks are elevated and they are adjacent to a great many homes. We lose a coal car down in the yard, we won't have any idea what's under it until we find out later, perhaps much to our regret. Another example is that, and I have information about this, is that KCRG news station out of Chicago was discussing this issue as common type of rail car has dangerous design flaw, and this is referring to tanker cars. I'm going to read a couple parts from this article, and I will send the additional links to the members of the HCRAA and also St. Louis Park City Council for anybody else who'd like to contact your representative, get further information. For 2 decades, one of the most commonly used type of rail tanker has been allowed to haul hazardous liquids from coast to coast, even though the transportation officials were aware of a dangerous design flaw that almost guarantees the car will tear open in an accident, potentially spilling cargo that could catch fire. These are the ethanol train cars that are going to be routed through our community. There are no ethanol train cars on that track right now. Prior to this meeting several weeks ago, I did see 67 cars in a train that were traveling through the Kenilworth corridor. These are the kinds of trains that are going to be moved to our track and with sharper curves and bridges. Another discussion of that.
Your time is up. Can you wrap it up in your
Already?
last thought? Yep.
Okay. Let's see.
We'll let you finish your thought here.
Okay. Regarding the co-location, it was designed to be LRT exclusive. One of the things that was not considered is the relocation of the bike trail. There's been no mention of that as a possibility, nor any attempt to do that. Finally, I challenge our elected officials that this is your opportunity to make a decision that could wind up killing children, should it be a decision that puts all of these hazardous chemicals by the school. Again, I restate relocation. Not now, not ever.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? I see a hand back here. Come on up. If you'd introduce yourself for the tape, that'd be great.
Hi, I'm Frank Friedman. I live at 2530 Pennsylvania Avenue South in St. Louis Park, which is approximately almost 2 miles west of where the freight line would be. But I can tell you I'm also a block from the other rail, and the picture frames in my house all have the back-to-back sticky, because every time the trains go by, the vibration from a block away moves my pictures. So I don't know if that should be in the drafted environmental statement. But what maybe could be in the draft is really the livability of our city. There will be inconvenience. There will be an occasional ambulance stuck on Cedar Lake Road that can't get through. There will be the complaints, there will be the stories, there will be the noise, and there will be the frustration. And you will take a wonderful city and destroy a lot of its character.
Anyone else? In the green shirt, and then in the brown, and then over here, and then over here. 4 people.
My name is Tom Kutschke, and I live...
Could you spell your name since we don't have it written down?
K-U-T-S-C-H-K-E.
Okay, thank you.
And I live at 1288 St. Albans Street in St. Paul, Minnesota. I just wanted to give you another perspective here. Where I live, we live near Como High School. Como High School is right next to the Burlington Northern Santa Fe train tracks. They have 2.5 trains per hour going through that area. That's, in excess of 40 trains a day. Though there are some ethanol trains that go through there, and there's never been a problem there. The high school is within 25 to 50 feet of the train tracks, and there's a level crossing at Como in front. Also, if the Kenilworth route is chosen, there will be 6 stations that are next to the freight rail line. If the other route is chosen, there's only 1 station that's next to the freight line. Also, in the aspect of housing, there's 52 multifamily units within 26 to 50 feet of the train tracks in Kenilworth. There's 0 in St. Louis Park. There's 135 multifamily units within 51 to 100 feet of the tracks in Kenilworth. There's 0 in St. Louis Park. As to housing, there are 3 houses that are within 25 feet of the track. In Kenilworth, there are 0 in St. Louis Park. There are...
Folks, we listen to a lot of people.
This is from the
there.
report that you guys paid for a company to do.
Folks, we listened respectfully here, and we're going to listen respectfully to this
There's
gentleman.
also 52 units in Kenilworth that are between 26 and 50 feet of the tracks. There are only 2 in St. Louis Park.
Thank you very much for your comments. You were next. Welcome to the hearing.
Thank you. My name is Renee Beltrand, B-E-L-T-R-A-N-D. I live at 2805 Zarthan Avenue South. If we're going to consider the previous comments, then I think that what the DEIS is lacking is a complete apples-to-apples comparison. And I would very much hope that Hennepin County would make sure that that apples-to-apples comparison comes up, including mitigation costs for the city of St. Louis Park. as far as Hennepin County is, factor in terms of cost, I haven't heard anyone say anything about the impact on Minnetonka Boulevard traffic and what the environmental impact will be once Highway 100, which is also on the state project list, how that's going to factor in. And having ridden the school bus in rural Minnesota for many years as a child, I can tell you that yes, winter does come. It's coming, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. And diesel engines stall. And I would really, really hate to see it stall on the tracks. You've got PSI, Park Spanish Immersion school buses crossing those tracks, trying to get into the parking lot at PSI. I haven't heard anybody address what do you do with a packed school bus full of children when it has to stop before the railroad crossing and then start again to get across the tracks. They're mandated by law to stop at the railroad tracks. What happens if it stalls out when it starts up again? I've been on that bus as a child. It's cold in the winter. The bus is full. The train is coming. How do you get those kids off that train fast enough? I really, really sincerely hope that Hennepin County considers all of these safety factors. And I would hope that they would give the same weight to the children attending schools in St. Louis Park and the other communities that they give to the commuters who would be riding a co-located train. Commuters who, for the most part, are adults, not children. Thank you.
Thank you. You were next, sir. Welcome to the hearing.
My name's Bob Adderhold, Aderhold. I live at 3529 West 54th Street in Edina. First of all, I just want to say that I greatly support the Southwest Light Rail Corridor project. I think it represents a fabulous opportunity for economic development in our region. I think, unfortunately, well, I'm fortunate enough not to live on either route, but my interest is really just to see this project advance and also to see the negative impacts minimized as everybody wants here. It seems to me that no matter which route is chosen, it's going to generate opposition and inconveniences for someone, and a lot of intelligent arguments, I'm sure, would be made if the first choice was along the Kenilworth line. You, of course, are charged with choosing the best, or I should say, perhaps the least bad of the options, and then mitigating the negative impacts. I really appreciate the work that you three commissioners do. I think you've given a lot of thought to this, and I think there's a lot of work has gone into this, and I trust in you to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge Jake Spano, City Council member from the City of St. Louis Park. Sue Sanger was next, I think, over here. What are the rules?
Hi, I'm Sue Sanger, 4717 West 28th Street, St. Louis Park, and I want to say that I'm speaking only for myself. I'm not speaking for the city or for the city council. And I'm not going to repeat any of the comments that were made here today. I just want to address a point that I think was left out of the DEIS. And that is the decision that is reflected in there to say that co-location is not feasible. St. Louis Park gave you a study a year or two ago that showed that it was indeed feasible if the bike trail is moved out of the Kenilworth corridor. We have seen no analysis of that study. No one has addressed with us with me, I've not seen any indication or analysis of why that would not work. But I think you should think about the fact that it's so much cheaper to move a bike trail for half a mile than it would be to move freight rail, build a new bridge, provide the costs of all the mitigation that you haven't provided for in the DEIS, but we all know needs to be done. So I urge you to consider that and relook at the question of whether co-location is possible.
Anyone else who wishes to speak?
Can I just comment?
Shirley, come on. Please introduce yourself.
Yes. My name is Veronica Min Watipka. Was born in Korea and I'm a spokesperson for Minnesota. I've been to 55 countries. They can attack me, but never Minnesota or USA. And I just want to mention, you know, Switzerland and Korea and Japan, and they have a best train. And America has so many cars, but they don't have enough passenger trains. Train is much clean air and much safer than automobile to me. And I think I love children, and I think what they should do is a lot of high school children, they want to go to McDonald's. They should have some safe way so they can, you know, not interfere with the train. They should have a safe way they can cross to McDonald's. Because I love this country so much, and I think anything. I'm sure that Eisenhower, when he opened the highway, I'm sure not everybody agreed with him. So for big project, you cannot make everybody happy all the time, 100%. Some disagree, no matter what. Even same sister, brothers, same family, they don't agree. Even husband, wife don't agree. Like I love politics and I love people. My husband is very private person. So not everybody will happy, but we have to start somewhere, train. So I think beginning they will not all happy and agree, but I think this is a good way to start for train, for long run.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, we didn't get your address. I'm sorry.
7710 Gleason Road, Edina.
Okay, thank you very much. Next.
Hi, my name's Karen Miller. I'm at 2900 Yosemite Avenue South.
How do you spell your first name?
Karen, K-A-R-I-N.
Okay. I-N, okay.
And I just wanted to address the comments that the gentleman from St. Paul said. He was reading off a report, and I think he needs to reread that. Actually, what he was referring to as property lines, he was confusing the property lines with the number of households. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead, and then in the back.
Hi, I'm Lynn Stobie. I live at 3056 Dakota Avenue South, and
How do you spell your last name, if you would?
S-T-O-B-B-E, Boy Edward.
Thank you.
And I left a copy of my letter. Some of you have emailed, but I had referenced in a letter to you the train accident that we all know happened in 2003 up in Anoka, that 4 young people were killed on a train crossing. It was a vehicle train accident. And I went and looked up on the Department of Transportation site, and it said according to their site, it says 94% of all railroad crossing accidents are caused by risky behavior. Do you know of any high school students that participate in risky behavior? I see it daily. I live a couple blocks from the high school. Teenagers equal risky behavior. They do dumb things. Those of us who live there, I have stopped and have watched kids dart in front of cars. I've watched them dart under the lowered arms for the railroad tracks because they know they're moving slow, and people think, oh, this isn't going to make a difference. I mean, you guys really are potentially putting lots of kids' lives in danger. The kids cross the route to go to the athletic fields. They cross the route to go to McDonald's. What are these kids going to do if, oh, I'm late to school or I'm late to football practice? Do you think they're going to dart in front of a train and take a chance with their lives? Yeah, they are going to do that. I mean, that's what teenagers do. And then it also said in the Department of Transportation that nearly half of all rail crashes occur when a train is traveling under 30 miles an hour. Approximately every 2 hours in the U.S., a collision occurs between a train and either a vehicle or a pedestrian. That's 12 incidents a day. And basically, all of you think it's okay to increase this risk by putting this next to a major high school, a large high school. I mean, to me, this is a major safety issue. Nothing is more important. Walking paths, bike paths, even future light rail is more important than the safety of kids. Most people that run for government in the state, whether it's commissioner level or any level, you guys all propose to be for the kids. You know, say you're for the people, the citizens of the park. We don't see that. Then there's St. Louis Park's total distrust of this process that you guys have done. It's been mentioned on record that this was a done deal. Has made a lot of people unhappy. And I look at this whole process and it reminds me of Detroit style and Chicago style politics. I have siblings in both those cities, and the stories they tell us of the backdoor deals that are done is very sad. I don't want Minnesota to be like that. I want Minnesota to be open. I want Minnesota to do what's fair. And what's fair is not to have this freight reroute through St. Louis Park where there's no room for it to start with. And just because you made promises to the elitist people in Kenwood doesn't mean that it should be forced down our throats.
Anybody else? This gentleman back here, I'm sorry. I've passed you about 5 times, I'm sorry. Welcome to the hearing.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Matt Myers. I live in Richfield. I work in Eden Prairie.
Spell your last name.
Myers, M-U-Y-R-E-S. And I heard some things about the bike path that runs through Hopkins there in Uptown. So I haven't read the report or anything, so I don't know what's involved in terms of rerouting the bike path. So if there are reroutes or any information, please keep the cycling community posted. And if anything is left out, it always looks suspicious. The cycling community is a big community, and if we find out something the wrong way, generally we're respectful, but you'll hear from us, and so please keep the report up to date. I know Three Rivers Park, I think, controls some of the path through Hopkins, and then it stops, and then the Green Ray Coalition takes over. But please keep the cycling community posted with any updates or reroutes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. And there was somebody coming up over here, too. Go ahead.
Hi, Angela Burnson, 9021 West 34th Street, St. Louis Park. I wasn't really planning on speaking tonight, but there's this one other thing I want to throw out there as a parent of a 4th grader. I talk to a lot of parents about schools all the time. It's obviously a huge, concern of all of ours. Where are kids going to go? We're talking high schools already all the time. And I think, I've lived in St. Louis Park for 11 years. I think we all love St. Louis Park, and nobody really will say this, but I have to tell you that people will leave if they think that their kids are in danger or that their learning is somehow compromised by going to a school that shakes, or, that if you can't get a good education, people are going to leave. People with kids my age, 4th grader, 5th grader, high school, And then what's going to happen to St. Louis Park when you've got, I mean, already people are leaving for other various reasons related to schools, but safety is huge. If it comes down to, I mean, if it comes down to me staying in St. Louis Park that I love, or like, but putting my child in danger, I'm sorry, but I'm out of here. You know, like that's more important. So please consider that people will leave.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am, right here.
My name is Kathy Gross. I live at 2606 Alabama Avenue South in St. Louis Park. And come January, my husband and I will be here 8 years, and there was a gentleman from St. Paul that said there was no multi-housing along the tracks. I thought that's what he said, and I live in Sungate West. We are multi-townhouses back there. And I know that some of the residents have moved. They have relocated to other states for various reasons. And their townhouses have taken a while to sell. And one of the concerns that I've talked to some potential buyers, and when they found out about the railroad, they didn't buy. And so I agree with the lady before me that there is a concern that people are not going to be interested in moving here, and people are going to have a hard time selling their houses along this railroad. And my husband and I lived in Bloomington. We moved here because we love it here. It is a wonderful place to live and do business and live here. And I can't sit back there and not say anything. I'm not a speaker. I don't like to stand up front. But I have to root for this community. It's been voted a desirable place to live. It's the first ring suburb outside of Minneapolis. So we do feel very connected to Minneapolis. It's a win-win as far as location. I realize there's a lot of apartments that are being built now along 36th Avenue up by Byerly's and LA Fitness because these people were told that the light rail is coming in. And I'm in favor of the light rail. I think it's wonderful. I think it's neat that it's coming here, but I hate to get a win on one area and lose the community as a whole. And the other thing I'm concerned about too, and when we moved here, we did not know that this was coming in. And we live very close to the railroad tracks, and with it coming in 25 miles an hour, whatever, how is that going to impact the quality of our homes as we live along this railroad track and the speed is going to increase? What is that going to do to the structural of the buildings and the homes that live along this track? And I live here, I do not work, so I'm in St. Louis Park the majority of my week. I live here, exercise here, do business here. Am I going to have safety? You know, if there is 100 cars passing the city, the school, and my husband looked up tonight, the weight, 70-car pileup, backup for just by the school, and I really want to ask you to consider to look at all of everything that people are saying tonight. We live here and we want to continue to live here. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Dale Stenseth, St. Louis Park, 3153 Edgewood.
How do you spell your last name, please?
Stenseth.
Okay, thank you.
I believe tonight you have all experienced some of the hostility and some of the distrust and even disrespect that many of us feel. And I feel Hennepin County has brought on a lot of that. We have been told from the start that it was a done deal. Our suggestions and our input has been largely filtered or ignored. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else? Yes, sir.
My name's Steve Patazik, 2610 Vernon.
Could
I want
you
to finish
give us
what
a
my wife.
spelling on your last name?
I'll try to guess. No, P-T-A-S-Z-E-K. Good Polish
I
name.
missed.
I want to finish what my wife did not put on, Sharon Lehrman. She said, I'll read it for you. Hello, my name's Sharon Lehrman. Kidding. I grew up in Birchwood neighborhood in the home on 27th and Zenwood that my parents owned for almost 50 years. You already heard that. 18 years, blah, blah, blah. There's a special bond and pride for those who grew up here in St. Louis Park. Some of you may have seen the November 6th article, New York Times, called Minnesota Mirror, written by Pulitzer Prize winner, author, and columnist Thomas Friedman. Heard Thomas Friedman? He came here to look at the election through the window of his hometown of St. Louis Park. Tommy, this is why she didn't want to say it, she wanted to drop names. Tommy is also a family friend, and we graduated together from St. Louis Park School. He often talks about how growing up in St. Louis Park is the anchor and moral compass that keeps him grounded. He loves coming back here because nobody wants anything from it. He loves it. So, as a person who grew up here and lived in California and came back, I can say there is really something about Minnesota nice. So, that's all I have to say. And think about it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Going once. Anybody else? All right, go ahead. Hi, how are you?
Hi. My name is Sue Naha, N-A-U-H-A. I live at 2841 Brunswick in St. Louis Park here. I live the railroad is a bit higher than my backyard. I'm originally from a railroad town, True Harbors, Minnesota. My husband and I were both born and raised there. My dad was an engineer for many years. He's 94 right now, a retired engineer. He happened to have killed somebody shortly before he ended his retirement, to retire. He didn't want to. He tried to stop. Somebody was stopped on the track. He couldn't stop the train. He's had to live with this himself, coming from an engineer's point of view. My uncle, when I was 4 years old, was killed by a train. He was working as a brakeman. He fell. Several cars ran over him. When we moved here, we liked moving with a railroad in the backyard. There were only about 2 trains a day. They were going slow. We kidded everybody about having our own railroad in the backyard. But the kids liked it. The engineers waved at them and everything. But this new type railroad that you're talking about changes everything. I mean, we're not talking about slow train that's nice to have in the backyard that might even be safer than an alley for children. You're talking about, I sit there and I look at the back between my garage and the railroad track, and even if the train went off the track and didn't roll, my garage would be gone, my car would be gone. Now, no one has said that side of Brunswick was even considered buying those houses, just Blackstone. And I think Brunswick houses seems to be closer to the track than some of the Blackstone houses. This I don't understand either. Thank you.
There you are. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Karen Daly. It's K-R-E-N-D-A-L-Y. I'm at 2749 Brunswick Avenue. Lived here all my life, grew up, went to school. And I'm very passionate about what I do for a living. And I hear about safety. I've heard about car accidents and everything. Now, the one thing that I have not heard about is your commissioners for business. Now, this will impact everybody's insurance. Where do they come to do business here? Where do they drive around here? And you talk about courts. Now, if you have somebody who dies on a train track and your reports are wrong, who's going to cover that bill? Now, you know insurance companies, much like I do, have unlimited resources of attorneys. They'll take you for years. Now, who's going to be paying that bill when you have, like the lady just said, something happened, you get stalled, it could be a bus. If you have a bus full of kids, 40 kids on that bus, every single one of their parents' home policies can step up to you and go after you. So I'm beginning to wonder, have you done the logistics on I hate to say that word, courts, as to how much insurance companies would take you for on the first accident? I've been through derailments, and believe me when I say from 27th, 28th Avenue, 29th, Minnetonka Boulevard, all the way to the high school. It took them 3 days to clean that up. And I guarantee you this, back then, people weren't so happy to sue. Nowadays, they will be. And believe me when I say their car companies will go after you guys lock, stock, and barrel until you get these reports right. And tell houses, now the big buildings you got on Kenwood, right? They've got $1 million policies on the back end, $5 million to cover the hazards. You get 20 houses that have a derailment, whether it's chemical, the rock, right? How much money can St. Louis Park dish out? How much money are the commissioners going to dish out? Or how much is Hennepin County going to come back at you guys and say you didn't get the reports right? Because that will be in the books. I've seen it happen. And believe me when I tell you, there is one gentleman that actually his parents are still going after the St. Paul Railroad for millions of dollars. So please get those reports right, because this is on the back burner, and I don't think anybody here wants to play with an insurance company. Think about yours.
Anybody else? Going once? Twice? You've already been up there once, right? I'm sorry, we're not gonna do repeats. Yes, sir.
I'd like to, John Jerdy, Jon. My last name I'll spell slowly. Gjerde. I want to talk a little bit about a term called environmental justice. We've got a sad history in the United States of urban areas that happens often, where people with big plans and big dreams come up with big and scary ideas. They don't want to put them through places with people with money. Where does it end up going? Poor neighborhoods. Look at the Rondo neighborhood in St. Paul, one of the most vibrant neighborhoods in St. Paul. Somebody had the great idea of putting 94 right through the city. Did they pick along Summit Avenue? Did they go north? They picked the poorest black neighborhood in St. Paul, destroyed it. I taught there for years. It's not back yet. That was in 1950. Okay? My fear, and I hear it from a lot of people, is that there are big people making big plans. And they've found the easiest place to take that inconvenient train. And they're finding the people that have the least power, and they're going to put it right down your throat. It happens in every urban area in the United States, and this is exactly what's happening here. It's called environmental injustice. They don't want it there because it's noisy and loud and dangerous, but they have plans. So let's ship it to us. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to try it again. Anybody else? Anybody else? Third and last time. Anybody else? All right. Thank you all. We appreciate your passion, your insights, your willingness to be here and to participate in this process. And with that, we will adjourn the meeting tonight. Thank you very much.